friend. You're listening to The Sustainable Bodyworker, the podcast for massage therapists who want to grow thriving, purpose-led businesses without the burnout. Here we talk about nervous system aligned business strategy, pricing that makes sense, client work that doesn't deplete you, and how to build a career that actually supports your life. I'm your host, Gretchen Pop, massage therapist, mentor, educator, and recovering overachiever. Let's get into it. Welcome everyone to another episode of The Sustainable Bodyworker. I am, as always, super excited to be joining you today, and we have Kelsey again to connect about what it actually means to be a sustainable bodyworker. So Kelsey, kick it off for us.
So this podcast has been a great platform to share the stories of other practitioners who've been able to expand beyond the massage table and do things a bit differently for themselves. And now we get to take a moment to talk about how you, Gretch, have been able to get to the point of developing this life and this work for yourself. So what does your workday flow of being the sustainable bodyworker look like now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you were to have asked me even just like 7 years ago what my life is like now, I would be like, you're joking. You're absolutely joking with me. I'm hands-on 2 days a week max now. I've got maybe up to 5 clients a week on a really busy week. And I actually really love that for myself. It is the limit at which, well, it's not a limit so much as the place at which I feel like I can give my absolute all. But my workflow otherwise is really super flexible. And that's what I really, really love, because it allows me to have creative time when it comes up organically for me. I have gone through phases where sometimes super early in the morning, I have all of this energy to be able to put something together. Or sometimes I just want to walk around and mosey around my garden with a cup of coffee and do yoga all day. And then, I get hit with inspiration at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I'm working into the wee hours of the night because it feels good. Mm-hmm. So without going into the minute by minute detail of what my life is like, I can say that I'm in a place where I'm working hands-on as much as allows me to give the energy that I want to give. But also I have the freedom to create and put energy into the projects that I love when it actually arises naturally, which is really great for when you want to have that type of sustainability in the form of being able to put different projects into motion, so to speak.
That's amazing. I really like that distinction between being able to follow not just the sparks of inspiration, but the sparks of rest too. I feel like so often when we are, if you want to call it type A, go-getter, entrepreneurial, when you have that, it can be so easy to let rest fall by the wayside. So I really like that that was actually the first representation that you listed, was being able to take those easy mornings when you feel like you need to.
Yeah,
That's
well,
great.
It's actually really funny because a friend of mine the other day was telling me how much they admire my hustle. And I had to actually correct him briefly and be like, I actually am switching out of the hustle. I did put a lot of work into where I am now. So like, just to kind of preface this has not always been like smooth, easygoing. It took a lot of reprogramming for myself, and I'm sure we'll get into it as we speak further. But it took a lot of reprogramming of this idea of that I have to work really hard and then I can rest. And I've been toying, particularly in about the past year, with the idea of like, what does it look like if I rest and then I can actually get the really good work? So that's probably why I put that first, because I've been really trying to program that into my life.
That sounds so simple. I'm not gonna lie, I just had like a little bit of an epiphany moment. You saying that's like, wow, if I rest first, my cup is full. My cup is full. Yep. And then I can pour from that cup. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So in that case, can you kind of walk us through what your life looked like before you made these changes? How does it feel different than the way your days flow now?
Yeah. So again, it's been an evolution. I didn't just wake up and everything was sustainable. Like I said, I put a lot of pieces into place, and I'll be really transparent. A lot of this came from this a hypervigilant state.
Mm.
A lot of it came out of fear that it wasn't going to always be sustainable or that it wasn't going to be easy. So, again, anyone who is wanting to create a sustainable career and coming at that from a place of fear, you're not alone. For what it's worth, use that energy to, turn it into something a little bit more better. But yeah, I mean, the days were hustle, hustle, hustle. Waking up, I spent this time waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning, putting as much work in as I could while my brain was super fresh before the kiddo woke up. There was a big point in my career when my daughter was really little, and that really lit a fire under me. Having a kid, I'm sure anyone who's a parent can resonate with this. Having a child lights a very different fire under you than just being like, I want to create a great business. It's not just about the business. It's like, this kid needs to eat and I want them to go to school and all of those other things. So again, the feeling was coming from a place of hypervigilance and fear that I wasn't going to make ends meet. And I didn't have that so much before I got pregnant. There were tastes of it as I was starting to build my business, but pregnancy and giving birth really, really threw me through a loop. We can probably have a conversation with some moms on this podcast about how postpartum depression impacts growing a business. That would actually be a really interesting episode, I think.
I would listen to that for sure.
But it felt different in the sense that I had to do it, otherwise everything was going to fall apart. Whereas now, the sensation that I'm operating from is I get to do this. And my life is this one opportunity. This life right here is this one opportunity to do it in this way. So what would it look like if I just leaned into this version that feels so much better? And that's part of the reason why I'm so passionate about all of this, the sustainability and the safety and working with something that feels good. It doesn't make sense for me to run a business from a place of fear anymore. It was killing me. I can go into all of those stories I have before in different contexts, but that didn't feel good. It absolutely was not sustainable. I burnt out. And it's funny because even if there's a month where I make less money than I did in those days when I was hustling like crazy, it's fine because I'm chill about it. And, at the end of the day, I've created padding, and this is where my system for building sustainability into our practices, like I teach in my membership, is crucial for creating that level of safety and that level of padding financially, because there are going to be months where, we just did not break even this month, and that's just kind of how business goes sometimes. And then there's going to be massive flooding of income sometimes as well. And when you can create your business in a way that is not feast or famine, it's just the flow of business, and you can kind of detach your emotional state from it, that's the place that I would really, really like Bodyworkers to be able to get to, because there are so many more possibilities and you feel a little bit more of a kind of a safety net in that way, where it's not just like, oh, I need to call all of my clients and try and get a body on the table because I'm not going to make ends meet. It's, oh, well, I have these other sources of income that I can trust, that as long as I'm operating from a place of alignment and joy, that door will open and allow the income to come in. And I've seen that so many times. Represented in this story that I had told you. I remember I told you the story a while ago where I was trimming the rose bushes in my garden, and there was that voice in the back of my head telling me, like, there's things on the computer I should be doing, I should be working, there's posts I need to post on social media, and just recognizing, like, no, but I love being in my garden and it's a beautiful day and I can get to the computer later when the sun isn't shining and it's not so good. And then I get walked back to my computer to find that those doors of income that I had created through the passive revenue sources, like the online courses, had brought in several $1,000s of income while I was pruning my rose bushes. And that's what I want for everyone listening.
I love the pairing that you just mentioned of alignment in both your intentions, your actions, and the healthy detachment from whether it's all the things that you should be doing or the exact outcome that you're expecting to get. That seems like such a healthy perspective compare to? I feel like so many episodes we end up mentioning dissociation with massage therapists, whether it's in their active practice when they're working with a client on the table, or dissociation from the pressures that they're feeling financially, the pressures they're feeling outside of the treatment room, and not being able to create the kind of space and work that they want for themselves in their life. And what you are describing to me sounds like a very, very healthy antidote to that, in getting aligned with exactly what you want, both internally and externally, and having a healthy detachment from the things that are separating you from that. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I want to say too, like, for anyone listening who's like, well, yeah, I mean, you have like I can hear people already being like, well, you have these online courses and you like, you're in this position. I want to really iterate that it is something that was developed over a long period of time. And my mindset around it is something that has developed over a long period of time as well. And that's part of the reason why I'm passionate about implementing hypnotherapy, because that has been truly the crux of what has allowed me to stay with the rose bushes in those moments, because I would have just dropped down my shears and been like, oh man, I have to get on that thing and I have to respond to that email right away as soon as I remembered. And it really is the process of unwiring those programs and really having true faith. It's not a fake it till you make it type of situation. It's really truly developing the faith so that it does feel good to be like, no, I'm going to stay with my rose bushes. And that ka-ching, that's where that income came from.
That's amazing. I am curious. I know, of course, hypnotherapy and mindset shifts have been such a big part of your practice, and I'm assuming it's been a big part of your practice throughout this entire change. But at the same time, what do you feel like were the first big shifts that you made where you started to change how your days looked and felt?
I think it was really starting with recognizing what I didn't want to tolerate anymore. And I've told this story many times before, where there was a day when I think my daughter was probably about 2 years old. She's playing on the playground and she's doing her thing. And I'm sitting on the edge of the playground, and one of my clients texts me that she needed to cancel her appointment. And that was the income that I needed to break even that month. And I had big financial goals. I had big loans that I needed to pay on the clinic that we had just built. And there was a lot of financial stress on me. And I remember just breaking down, crying on the side of the playground, not just because of the financial load, but also the fact that this was a time that I was supposed to be playing with my daughter on the playground. And when I really looked at what I was living and the compromise that I was making in my life, I was compromising these moments with my daughter that I would never get back again. That's a beautiful age, 2 years old. And recognizing that I did not want to tolerate that type of experience. And obviously, ideally, it would be really nice to have a client cancel and then automatically be like, oh, yes, that gives me more time to work on this creative project. And that's one of the mindset shifts that I do work with people inside the membership on, especially when they're working with online courses and developing an online course. Many of the people that I work with, they are fully booked, or they're incredibly busy, or they're running multiple businesses at a time, or they are the breadwinner, so they really can't compromise any of the clients that they currently have in order to create space for creating an online course, because it does take work and you have to set it up, and it does take marketing efforts. But we shift that mindset from when a client cancels, now you've been given time. You've been given the gift of time that you wouldn't have normally had. So recognizing what I no longer wanted to tolerate, and then shifting my outlook on these presumably bad things that were happening in my business as gifts, opportunities to be able to focus on something different instead. That was the very beginning.
I really love that. Such a small shift, but you end up being able to gift yourself that presence back and see more positive opportunities within a possible, I don't know, I almost said deficit, within a possible like mishap, having someone's schedule. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, and I see this all the time too, when body workers are working on something big and their common complaint is, I don't have the time for this. Where am I going to fit in the time to record these videos for an online course, or where am I going to find time for X, Y, and Z? The universe gives you time. These clients do cancel, but then we spend that time trying to get that appointment booked or doing these busy work things that don't actually move the needle. But when we have a plan, and here's an actionable step for anyone listening today, have a plan for when clients cancel. I remember I had Annette Montgomery sharing her wisdom inside the membership at one point, and she was talking about having like a checklist of things to do when a client cancels. I think that's something that she put together. I seem bell is ringing that she put that together for us. If not, there is a resource in there along those lines. And it really is important to take the opportunity for when this cancellation happens. You already know what you're going to do with that time. If you find yourself saying like, oh yeah, I never post on social media because I don't have time to do it, or I would love to have a newsletter that I send out once a week, but I never find time for it. Have this on a list. Have those things that you say you never have time for, have that on a list for when the clients cancel, because you're often given these opportunities. Even when a client is running late, a client texts you, hey, I'm running 10 minutes behind. There's a lot you could do in 10 minutes if you already know exactly what you're going to be doing. So having that shift of really utilizing the time that you've been given. There's this concept that I love from the Big Leap called Einstein time, that time expands when you perceive it differently. He tells a story in the book that's really profound about how he, saw someone in need, and he was in a rush, and he saw someone in need, and he decided like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and help this person out real quick, and then I'll probably be late for this thing that I'm going to. But then it turns out, even after helping this person and spending time with this person, he got to where he needed to go at exactly the time that he would have it if he left, because time expands when you do things that are in alignment. So I really think that happens as well. You just need to plan ahead for what you would do if you had the time, so that when the time is granted, you're not wasting unnecessary mental energy on freaking out about it, or things that aren't productive, that don't move the needle.
That's amazing, because not only are you finding a way to reclaim that time, but you're finding a way to redefine whatever story you might be telling yourself if things are quote unquote happening to you on the regular, like people canceling. That's the Einstein time story too. There's a really similar story in 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals as well.
I love that.
It's a really good book.
I'm gonna have to read that.
It's amazing. So you have created a couple of high-level programs and reoccurring income offers. How did that process begin for you, outside of the motivations and the things that you no longer wanted to tolerate and the way you wanted to move your life?
Yeah. I owe a lot of my inspiration to my good friend Anthony, who I lived with during the time when I built my clinic. And when I was building the clinic, all of a sudden, my vision for what was possible for me income-wise expanded, because, you start working with, okay, I'm going from 1 treatment room to 3 treatment rooms. That means how many therapists could I hire? How many massages could possibly happen at this time? And it expanded my capacity for seeing what kind of income could come to me through that. And also through conversations with him, we started talking about passive income and really starting to see how the world on the internet, so many people were offering online offers, and the idea of like, oh, teaching online education is something that would be really, really impactful for the massage community. I learned a lot of cool Esalen techniques on YouTube. I loved watching Esalen and Lomi Lomi, and that's a lot of where I got my inspiration from. And I knew like people love learning online. It's so accessible. And so I want to say it was sometime probably in 2008. Yeah, it was 2018. I started outlining my online course, Neuromuscular Cupping Therapy. And I spent 2 years diddling with it on a PowerPoint presentation and doing a lot of research and investing in online courses for myself, like learning not only Bodywork, but also learning how to market things online. Also marketing for my brick and mortar business. So just learned a lot of things. And I also started seeing how I could reverse engineer what other people were doing. And I reverse engineered a lot of their marketing for my clinic. So I started really starting to see how all of those things could be put together. And sitting on my hands for 2 years with imposter syndrome around my online course for massage therapists. Funny story, my imposter syndrome caused me to misread the requirements that NCBTMB puts on for being an online or just an educator, CE instructor. I misread that either you have to have a bachelor's degree or 5 years professional massage experience. I read it as and I don't have a bachelor's degree, college dropout here. And so it's so funny how your brain will do that for you when you have such massive imposter syndrome. I looked at that document so much. I tried going back to school and I had panic attacks around it because I'm like, I have to take math class. Like, I don't need math. Why are you making me do this? So I misread the document and for 2 years didn't even do it. And to be completely honest, I finally launched neuromuscular cupping therapy when COVID hit because losing that amount of income, we had such big financial goals with wanting to purchase our first home and doing that as self-employed. I'm not one of the lucky massage therapists that has a breadwinner husband. My husband is a massage therapist too. Yes. So we had the same income limitations and he worked for me as well. So it really was dependent on me. So when COVID hit and we shut down the clinic, I was not willing to utilize my savings for covering us and floating us. This was before I found out that we were going to get any kind of unemployment from the government. And so I actually, Mom, if you're listening, you're finally going to discover that you have something to take credit for in regard to the release of my course. I was in the midst of having a really, really, really bad day and really freaking out about the whole scenario. She came over to babysit and kind of take the pressure off a little bit, and I had snapped at her. And when I came around, I apologized to her. I said, Mom, I'm really sorry for being snappy. I am having a really hard time. And she goes, yeah, well, you're not the only one who's having a hard time right now. And in lieu of giving her the middle finger, I decided to go take a walk and cool my head a little bit. And around the loop of the beautiful park that we lived by, on the way back, I had this light bulb go off. It was kind of like being whispered to gently from the universe, and it said, launch your course, share the course. And as soon as I came back, I posted on Facebook. I'm in massage therapist communities on there. I posted on Facebook saying, hey, I'm going to be sharing a course called Neuromuscular Cupping Therapy. Anyone who's interested, please join this new Facebook group. I think I had something like 77 members. 7's my lucky number, so that like kind of burned into my brain. And then 22 of them ended up signing up for the first round. And it covered me for that first month. And then launching it again I launched it 4 times before turning it evergreen. And if you ever learn what how to process an online course and how to launch an online course with me, you'll totally understand what beta launches are and subsequent launches and evergreen and all of that is. But essentially, I was able to really create it and have people come learn with me. And the rest is history. I've been launching things ever since.
I think that's one of my favorite parts of getting to know you more, both on a professional and a personal level, is hearing people reiterate how much they've enjoyed the experience of learning that skill set with you and watching, not only hearing about your story, how everything's changed so much for you just making these shifts, but seeing that story repeated again and again in other people has been something that's been really cool to witness. Yeah. As far as when you talk about having your practice back in Boulder, how was the hiring process for you? How did bringing on support and changing your day-to-day life?
Yeah. And this is something that I teach in the membership because, man, for a long time, I did not do it right. And we learn a lot through mistakes, right? I started hiring my first employee was actually David. So that won't count because, when you hire your partner, that's a totally different story. There's a lot more wiggle room that happens. But so our first official employee that is not part of the family, she was fantastic. And I learned a lot through that experience because, man, did I want to be a cool employer. I really wanted to be like that person that's just like, yeah, we're actually friends. And this is part of the reason why I like won't take on a management role in the employee situation that we're in right now. Like I won't even like I just want to stay an employee, because as soon as you get into that employee employer position and you like really want to do like the cool thing, you kind of have to realize that sometimes you can't be the cool person, because it's hard. So like yeah, being able to ask for help and create some, you know, boundaries and policies, and learning that not everyone is as OCD as David and I, you know, like, and like there's actual diagnoses behind this. So before anyone throws the ableist thing, like I use this like legitimately, we've got some OCD tendencies here. And like learning that people aren't always going to do things the same way, and having room for recognizing that people are going to bring their own value and their own beauty, but also really coming from a place of like, what is the value of your business? This is what I teach in the First Time Employers Guide that's in the membership. If you do want to hire an employee, before doing that, it is so freaking crucial to understand what your business stands for, because then you can actually attract the person that is going to help that business stand for that. You don't just want someone, you know, if you are hiring a massage therapist, you don't just want someone who's going to give massages. You need to hire someone who's going to be giving massages from the same or similar mission and drive as you are. They might not be employer or like big vision. Obviously, they won't be because they're an employee, but they need to at least have a similar passion for that. And you also need to understand the numbers. You need to understand, you know, man, I wanted to pay 50% so bad, and it's just not feasible. And there's so many people who end up hiring people and then realizing, oh snap, like I either need to cut their pay or I need to let them go. And because it's just not sustainable. Again, all coming back to having the sustainable career, you've got to figure those things out. And I learned a lot along the way. It was not easy, actually. It did not take pressure off of my plate the first time I hired someone. And this is, I think, one of the misconceptions that a lot of us experience as massage therapists. We have this idea that the primary way to grow or expand as a massage therapist, that next step is to become an employer or open your own practice and then hire another employee. And for a lot of us, that is not the case, especially in this day and age. That's why I honestly heavily promote launch an online course first and have that passive income first, because truly, when neuromuscular cupping therapy and also my online coaching offerings took off, that created the padding in my clinic to actually then be the cool employer, to have I had employee outings. I took them out axe throwing. We had dinner all the time. Like it allowed me to do that. We had a personal trainer come, and like we really had all of those benefits, but it was the online courses that made that possible. So I honestly think that when you can set yourself up for a place of financial abundance first, then hiring employees can be really beneficial. I don't necessarily think it's always the best choice to bring on an employee with the mindset of this is going to help me become financially free, because it often does not. It adds more to your plate, and it is expensive to have employees. So, but there's definitely people who are capable of doing that and doing it right, but you've got to start out on the right foot. And that all starts with, there's many different steps. There's many different things that you need to look at financially and all of that. But the first step truly is aligning with your personal mission in your business so that you can kind of set that energy, the resonance, make sure that the people who are applying are actually resonating with that. And you know what you stand for so that those people really are attracted to the position.
That makes sense. I can't imagine the casual dissonance that must be felt on the daily, even outside of the financial pressures and making sure people are a good fit day in and day out. That sounds like a lot to juggle.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not the easiest job.
It sounds a little exhausting.
Yeah, it's in my opinion not the first next step, especially when there's other options available like online courses or developing high-level programs for your clients.
Hey friend, quick pause in the episode because I have to share something that's made a huge impact on both my practice and the work I teach inside my courses. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you probably remember the teal cups I started out with. Those were iconic in my early days of teaching cupping therapy. But here's the thing I learned the hard way: not all silicone cups are created equal. I started noticing huge inconsistencies between sets: cups that discolored fast, sharp edges that irritated my client's skin, and it just wasn't cutting it for the level of work I was doing. And in 2020, I found Global Cupping, and I've never looked back. Their cups are hands down the clearest, smoothest, and most consistent silicone cups I've ever used, and I've tried a ton. The difference in quality is immediately noticeable. These cups stay clear even after repeated disinfection, and they're built to stand up to high-level sanitation protocols, something I insist on teaching in my neuromuscular cupping therapy trainings. What I also love is the customizability. I can mix and match sizes in a set, no more stockpiling a bunch of cups I never use, and their silicone facial cups are my absolute go-to now for jaw work. No more rubber bulbs on the glass cups to worry about disintegrating, just easy to clean, durable tools that are comfortable for both the client and the therapist. In my own approach, I combine cupping with movement, massage, and retraining at the neuromuscular junction. And that means I need cups that can move with the body, grip well, and feel safe and smooth on sensitive tissue. These silicone cups, especially the 55 hardness to start with, are perfect for that. And for chronic pain clients, especially those with nervous system dysregulation, the ability to glide, pause, and work in dynamic ways is key to breaking pain cycles. Plus, their customer service, impeccable. I'm a stickler for this. I've had questions, students have had questions, and they're always quick, professional, and just genuinely kind. It makes a really big difference. So whether you're brand new to cupping or you're refining your technique, this is the gear I recommend. It's an investment in your practice that pays off in results, ease of use, and your client's comfort. Use code NEURO at checkout for 20% off your first order at globalcupping.com. All right, let's get back to the episode.
When you do think about your students that are inside the membership, is there anyone whose story really stands out to you right now?
I would say every person who has interacted with me a lot in the membership has a very unique way that they have, impacted me. Like, I love witnessing the way that each person takes this information and goes in their own unique story. Again, everything I teach is rooted in connecting with your unique values so that from there you grow something that's exceptionally beautiful. There's one practitioner in particular that comes to mind who, I would love someday to see her launch an online course, but I've had the privilege of meeting her in person. She's just the sweetest person. She's got so much to offer. And when I met her and when I started working with her, she was charging very little. And this woman has so much to offer. Not only does she have so much experience and so many skills to offer, but she's got years and years and years of experience as well. So she was charging so little and giving a lot of extra time as well. And she's just one of those people that loves to chit chat and hang out and, super flexible with her timing. And I keep on talking to her like, girl, okay, you love your clients, that's great, but you keep telling me how exhausted you are. You keep telling me that you can't work any more hours and you just had surgery, you're taking, you're really needing to take better care of your body, but you're giving. And through her time working with me, she's been with me since the beginning of the SBC actually. And even before that, she was in the neuromuscular cupping therapy training. Since then, she has really started working on her boundaries around how much extra time she's giving people. She's gotten really clear on what the service is that she provides rather than just kind of like, oh, I'll give you this and I'll give you that and I'll give you this. She's gotten really super clear with those. And that is a boundary, getting clear on what it is you are giving to people and whether or not X, Y, and Z is actually an upcharge. And then raising her prices is seemingly so simple, but when you raise the level of your self-worth and then the worth that you are asking your clients to reciprocate, her entire practice and her actual, it's interesting, the abundance in her life in other ways has shifted. Her energy has shifted. It's just, again, I would love to see her launch an online course, but even just those simple changes, everything is completely different in her business. It's been really, really cool to see.
I love that my mind is going to how often I find myself dating clients is that it's just as much working with a client as it is working on a client and finding where their thresholds are and finding where their muscular patterns are. And what you said about her shifting her self-worth and the worth that her clients are able to reciprocate back, it's just another level of we are working with people on a daily basis. And if we are in alignment with the boundaries that we're setting, whether financial or time wise or anything, the right clients will be respectful of that and working with those always.
And people meet you where you're at. So if you are in a place where you are overgiving because you don't think you're enough, people are going to meet you with the energy of taking more because you don't think you're enough, right? They're going to meet you exactly where you're at. So it's all about figuring out where you are resonating and what frequency you're operating from, because people are going to meet you there. And the funny thing is, so many people who work with me are like, you're telling me to, fire my clients or to just like turn the other cheek if they're upset about me raising my prices. And I'm like, yes, because that makes room for the right people. And if you come at that with the energy of like, I know I'm worth this and I'm really excited about this, and thank you so much for letting me know that this is not a fit for you anymore, because now there's room for Joe, who has probably been trying to book with me, but I've been fully booked with all of these non-aligned clients. Now there's room for Joe, who really wants to pay you those higher prices and also receives your work better. I've seen this time and time and time again, and you just have to have faith that when you operate from a place of valuing yourself super highly, those clients will receive that.
We love that for Joe. We love that for you.
Joe is so happy he can finally be on your table.
And we are so happy to have Joe on our table. So how does your business now support your life in its entirety, not just in your income?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm able to garden. People ask me what my hobbies are, and I'm like, flowers. I want all the flowers. So I'm a little obsessed with growing flowers right now. I have the time in the morning to do a really long yoga practice. And yeah, the business supports that. I've been able to, so many people, depending on what offer they create through the system that I teach, they could be completely passive. They could have something that's completely on demand and they never have to talk to a person or offer support or do Zoom rooms or anything like that. What I have created for myself, which is totally possible for anyone listening, is I have a coaching space where I'm able to connect on a daily basis with my people. If you join the Sustainable Bodyworker membership, then you will have access to me. You're basically in my pocket and we get to chit chat back and forth. And that's a really beautiful thing. I actually really love, and this lights me up. This is one of the things that I'm really excited about too, because when you figure out what lights you up, it doesn't feel like work. It's that age-old saying, when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. But it's kind of true, because I get so freaking high from these coaching calls, and especially on the office hours when there's a lot of people chatting. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna tell this person this and this person this, and I'm da-da-da-da-da. And it really meets my high energy Gemini where I'm at, like talking to people all over the place. So being able to be super flexible in when I show up and how I show up, but then also being able to super curate my time, being like really protective with the self-care time that I have. I am very like the bookends of my day. The way I start my day and the way I end my day, I'm very protective of that. And I don't feel like many massage therapy jobs offer room for that. Now, you and I are in a scenario where we definitely have that flexibility and we can communicate with our employer like what our schedule is, and that's a huge blessing. Shout out to Latitude Massage.
Susan's the best.
Susan is the best. Hey, Susan. But a lot of places don't necessarily offer that flexibility. I was one of those employers, so like I understand. You got to work a weekend shift in addition to all of these things. There's a lot of requirements, or the shifts go. I worked until 10 o'clock at night at the franchise that I worked at. And some people started work at 7 a.m. there. And they liked it and it worked for them. But the flexibility isn't necessarily there so much, especially when you have to work so many hours to earn a livable wage. It does not meet at least my requirements for being able to protect my time. as well as there was a job that David worked at for a while. I think this was actually at several locations, but I remember one of the more recent ones in particular was this really ritzy spa. He was required to be on call several days a month. And so it actually created, I know that this is actually a really common thing in the spa industry too, because there, it might be a high volume day, it might not be. And then also if someone calls in sick, it's like you're the backup person. So it's pretty common practice. But it created a sense of like, that's part of the reason why I was just like, quit that job, just work for me full time. Like it was only a handful of change, him working a couple of days a week there. But it created this level of this energy on those days where it's like we didn't know if he was going in, so we didn't know if we could spend the day together. We couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't do anything as a family because he always had to be within an hour of leaving. So when it comes to being able to develop a passive income stream or something that's just more flexible or something that is more abundant, even like a high ticket offer for your in-person clients, you don't have to be super techie and create an online course or become an educator. There's so many different routes that you can go in this process. You can create the freedom that allows you to step away from feeling like you need to be available all the time or you need to constantly fill your books. Or if Joe cancels, I mean, Joe, poor guy, like he just got his massage, now he's canceling. If someone cancels, you're feeling that need, like, oh, I have to replace that income right away. I don't even know where my tangent is going or where it came from, but
that's
like,
okay, let it flow.
Yeah, it all comes down to like creating that flexibility. And I was talking about protecting my bookends. I really do feel like my energy and what matters to me can be protected because I've created these systems in my business and my life that supports my ideal way of living. And that's what a lot of people, I think, get backwards sometimes, is they really focus on having their life support their business. And they work really, really hard on getting their business to operate properly. But just like resting first to allow the work to happen, if we get our life plugged in and see how our business fits into that, then we can actually enjoy the business part. And yeah, there's crappy things that come up. Like, I don't want to deal with sending Joe a text about how he owes me money because he canceled last minute. Like, there's things that are challenging. But when you're operating from a place of alignment, it's so much easier to do those things because you have a different energy behind how you're running your business.
So speaking to your protective bookends on each side of the day and to the value that you find in protecting your rest and the way that supporting other body workers lights you up, what are some other values that you find yourself running your decisions through on a daily now?
Yeah, I love that question because this is actually one of the core pieces that I run everyone through in the Practice with Purpose program, which is the foundational 30-day program within the Sustainable Bodyworker, is figuring out what your values are because that is the compass by which you can make every decision. So my core values are honesty, communication, safety, nature. And so those are kind of like the 4 pillars of how I run everything. So if, for example, I have a client who is canceling last minute, well, communication is really important. I might have a little slight panic attack, like, damn, I really don't want to deal with this and da-da-da-da. But having a solid script for that scenario helps me align with that value because it is communication that is thought out beforehand. It's not being presented in a reactive manner, like, keyboard warrior typing out a response. I have something that I am copying and pasting I thought about when I was not in a reactive state. So that's kind of how I align with that value. I love the honesty too. Like, if I'm sick, I'm going to tell the client I'm sick and I can't show up, like if I have to cancel. But the honesty also lines up with, for example, if I cancel on them, I give them the exact same cancellation policy as if they canceled on me. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, just what values you run your decisions through, and I think that's a very applicable value, especially in the reciprocity to mirroring that to clients if you end up being the person to cancel.
Yeah.
I feel like there's another tangent I could flow over there. I love that part of your course specifically. The core values that came up for me were adaptability, presence, compassion and connection. And I see mirroring characteristics in the qualities that you've listed as well.
Yeah, well, I think the tangent that you were intuitively pinging on was the fact that your core pillars can tangent. Like, so honesty and communication, those are super tied together for me. I mean, communicating with honesty and honesty in communicating fully, those are really big for me. But those can go into so many different directions. Like, how does honesty play into my integrity around marketing, for example? I really want to make sure that my marketing efforts are coming from like an ethical place, for example. So, I mean, there's a lot of other value words that I just sprinkled in there, right? Integrity and ethics and things like that. So we can branch out and we want to look at each piece of our business like, oh, okay, how does, say, for example, I have a business plan that says I would like to earn $10,000 a month and that revenue stream. Well, how does that support my value of nature? Well, actually it does, because that income stream allows me to spend X amount of days hiking.
Yes.
Or it allows me to save up money to be able to contribute to whatever conservative efforts that I would like to support, you know? So even if it's a personal value that you think actually doesn't relate to business, I mean, I'm sure people listening were like, well, what does nature have to do with anything? It actually does a lot with everything. Also, like bringing in natural products into my business. I love working with like really high quality oils and making sure they're organic and putting herbs in them. Got my herbalist certification, and I love playing with all of that. So that plays into that as well, and working with the natural rhythms of how the body works. So there's so many different ways that each little pillar can support all of the areas of business, but then also recognizing, for example, if you have a client who comes in and they are wearing really terrible perfume. I know we've all been there. That conflicts with that value of nature, right? And it conflicts with my headaches problems.
My sinuses.
So like there, okay, well, I also have a value of communication and honesty. Am I going to allow this client to continue coming in? Like, are they a good client? Like, do they treat me well otherwise? Or am I going to communicate that I really need them to, you know, perhaps choose a different day where they're not wearing perfume for a specific event before their massage, for example, because I know sometimes they plan other things around. So how do all of these other values interweave in real life scenarios? And in my experience, it has allowed me to recognize where I might be people pleasing and thus minimizing my own values for the sake of a paying client. And when being able to figure out like, okay, how do I approach this perfume situation? Maybe it is having a sign on the door saying, you know, please be mindful of bringing scents in, or having it on the confirmation email, or having even just a heart-to-heart conversation like, hey, I love your perfume, but it's really strong. And I would really love if perhaps just because it's an enclosed space, can we plan a time for your next massage? Like when you're rescheduling them, can we plan a time where maybe it's not after a business meeting where you would be wearing perfume? It's absolutely okay to communicate that, especially if one of your highest values is communication, right? It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy, but it gives you the leverage to recognize how important it is to you. Thus, moving forward with it is something that just needs to be done for having an aligned business.
Yeah. Whether moving forward with that boundary being set, or in moving forward with now there's more room for more Joes afterwards.
More Joes.
More Joes.
I love that.
So if you found someone who was still in the process of being in a cycle of overwork, not even full burnout, but just constantly defaulting to overwork, what would you want to share with them?
I would first want to figure out where that need for overworking is coming from. Is it coming from a sense of worrying that there won't be enough? So I was overworking because I had very high savings goals. I had a big dream. I mean, I lived in Boulder, Colorado, and I needed 20% down to buy a house as a self-employed person, and 20% down even on a fixer-upper in that area, was a lot of cash. And that's a lot to ask of a massage therapist. But so where is that coming from? Is it coming from a lack of money? So you're wanting to make sure that you make enough money? Is it coming from avoidance of something else? Are you avoiding a part of your social life? And work is just kind of filling a void there. And these are hard conversations. This is why the hypnotherapy work, and this is why having a compassionate conversation with a coach that can kind of get to the root of these things and ask really good questions is really helpful, because sometimes, no, more often than not, we aren't willing to look at that ourselves because we've developed that sense of overwork and overwhelm in order to cover up what we're hiding from, right? So I would just want to get to the bottom of like where that's coming from and what it's overshadowing, so that we can then look at that shadow, right? That look at that piece of ourselves that's hiding and give it some love and see what it actually needs. I mean, honestly, anyone who's resonating with this and feeling like, oh shit, I feel seen, go find a shadow work meditation on YouTube. Like, you don't even have to like do my thing. Like, go find a really great shadow work meditation. There's so many of them on YouTube. I actually have had a lot of my members go do this. I'm like, stop talking now, go do this YouTube link, and then let's talk about this. Because oftentimes anything that we are doing that is keeping us from experiencing an aspect of our life that we would really like to enjoy, but we don't necessarily can figure out how to get ourselves to do it. It's keeping us from facing something that maybe we're ashamed of, or someone else expressed shame around, or that we are worried won't be enough. There's so many different roots, right? So figuring out what that is and then giving that shadow self a big hug. And I walk through this in the hypnotherapy, and it seems like such a simple thing, but it's so profound when you can actually like meet that shadow, give it a hug, and just hold it. It's really profound. It doesn't even like, you don't even, I mean, if you need therapy, by all means go to therapy, but I think sometimes like the therapeutic process deepens those wounds for some people and kind of keeps us in that surface level of avoidance. This is by no means telling anyone to discontinue therapy. However, getting into a place where you can lovingly embrace what's been trying to hide is what cracks that open and allows you to love yourself.
And also changing the things that need to be changed, whatever you find that's underneath.
Yeah, it allows you to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we find ourselves often kind of circling around like, I know I need to be doing this thing. I know I need to be doing this thing. And like, why can't I be doing this thing? There are some people that I have worked with who I've worked with for years, and I'm like, hey, this is the same thing. This is the same thing. Yeah. This is the same thing. Do the hypnotherapy. Do the hypnotherapy. And oftentimes that's coming from just wanting to avoid that. They're perfectly aware of what the issue is. So just know if you are nervous about doing hypnotherapy or nervous about what you might uncover, it's actually a really beautiful experience because you're coming at it from a place of love.
Yeah, and understanding.
Yeah.
My mind is going back to, I hadn't even realized I was in a cycle of overwork for years because of a tense situation at home. And sure enough, once I was able to finally face that, remove the tension at home, and all of a sudden, even having the same number of clients, the same number of sessions each week, and all of a sudden it doesn't feel like I'm in overwork anymore. And even clients who I've been seeing weekly for at least 6 months are able to feel a difference in your energy at that point. And it really is incredible how often people can find themselves in that cycle without even realizing it. And like you said, they don't fully acknowledge it yet, or they know on some level, but maybe they know it on a intellectual level rather than a heart level, or vice versa.
Oh, that's me. Like 100%. Yes. I hyper intellectualize all my problems. And it's funny because I need my own coach. Like, because I was joking with you about this earlier, how I've coined this term, like instead of crippling anxiety, I've got crippling self-awareness. And it sucks. But at the same time, like, this is why we need that sounding board. We need that person to be like, hey, like, go do this thing for yourself. Like my coach will tell me all the time, like, go do your meditation. I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I need someone dishing it out to me as well. And I think it's interesting that you bring up, like, you'll have the same amount of clients and you'll have like they'll sense the energy is different. I've also noticed so many times that when you shift these things, the income changes as well. I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but people will tip higher.
Yes.
Or like for whatever reason, you'll get a raise, or things are cheaper when you go shopping.
Yes.
Like, it's very, very interesting how the income, because it's all energy, right? At the end of the day, money is just energy, and the abundance truly can flow to you so much more easily when you're in a totally different frequency about it.
Yeah, once you're in a different, there's different space to receive.
Yeah.
Becomes more allowing rather than reaching for it through all the patterns of overwork. It's beautiful.
And it starts with allowing yourself to be seen and loved.
It does.
Yes.
First step, main takeaway of the podcast. This episode. Allow yourself to be seen and valued, our friends.
Yes.
And you've mentioned in a couple of ways throughout this episode the ways that it lights you up to support other body workers as they move through this whole process. What kind of support does the membership offer to people who actually want to embody these practices?
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned the office hours. That's my favorite thing about the membership. Where basically you're in my pocket. We use the Voxer app, which is kind of like a walkie-talkie, and 3 days a week you can connect with me at any time, actually, and then I'll be there with you 3 days a week. We can chit chat back and forth if you make yourself available during those designated hours. But it's kind of like having me on demand, phone call, BFF, like whatever you need. I will send you resources if for example, if I know that there's a hypnotherapy track that will suit you really well for what you're going through, then I will send that to you. You can send me documents of what you've been working on. It's seriously the highest level of support. And that's at the highest tier of the membership. Everyone gets access to the Practice with Purpose program, which is a 30-day business building course you can take as long as you want. But if you do day by day by day, it expands on a piece of growing your business. And it's basically the business building course that has all of the 3D strategic businessy type of things that you would have in like a MBA program for massage. However, it is looking through the lens of personal alignment and fulfillment first. So that I'm very, very passionate about having everyone go through. Everyone has access to that. Everyone has access to the 2 times a month group coaching calls where I offer support. I do tarot for those who are interested, and I offer group hypnotherapy based off of what the group is feeling in one of those calls, which is really, really fun because I get a feel from the group, like, hey, what is everyone working on? The best part is that usually whenever I do a shout out on the group, what is everyone working on? We're all in the same boat. So I get to create a custom track for everyone based off of the actual words that they use. It allows me to do those deep subconscious reprogramming specifically for what everyone's going through. So those are really great. Everyone also has access to the hypnotherapy library, which is growing. I put in at least one new one every single month, oftentimes more, just because I'm inspired by stuff. And oftentimes the live hypnotherapy that I do is so juicy that I go ahead and create a high quality track to put into the hypnotherapy as well. There's also multiple other business programs. I mentioned the First Time Employer's Guide. That is my start to finish, everything you need to know about being set up to be an employer before you hire, as well as how to grow a team, again, through that lens of alignment and not just like, hey, here's how you employ someone. It kind of covers all of the bases. And then you also get access to the online course creation process that helped me. I have earned over $1.2 million from online course sales at this point. And I guarantee that that is not some random high number that is only achievable by some people. So many people are capable of doing this. And I share that number simply because I want you to know that it's possible. If you knew me 10 years ago and told me that that would have been possible, like I would have been like, you crazy. So every single person who has something to share with the world has a possibility of creating something like that for themselves as well. And so I teach that process from start to finish, not just how to create the course, but how to market it so that it actually sells. Most people do it wrong. So there's that. all sorts of other stuff. We have master classes that are taught by many other instructors as well as myself. We have a really awesome new thing coming to the membership that I am not quite announcing yet, but if you join the class that I am teaching this coming weekend, then you will absolutely get information on the new release that is coming. I'm so excited about this. And last but not least, I mean, there's so many other resources I could go on and on, but last but not least, there's all kinds of continuing ed credits as well, which makes this membership so different from other massage business memberships. Whereas if you're, learning techniques and all of that stuff from someone, that's fantastic, but these are actually CE accredited. So even if you just stick around for 1 month and get some CEs, it makes it well worth it.
I'm curious if there is a way that you'd recommend people start making these shifts for themselves in their practice.
Absolutely. It really depends on where the person is at. Everyone is in such a different place. Everyone has such different goals. I was talking with a friend yesterday even who was like, I don't think that I'm meant to be a teacher. And that's absolutely fine. Like, not everyone has to go teach an online course. Not everyone has to become an employer. Not everyone has to create a high-level program for their clients. That's why there's different routes. That's why there's the different things. And the fun thing is once you dabble in one, sometimes it gives you the permission to, or it expands your capacity, right? Your vision for yourself. And maybe you can try out one of the other things. That's how I ended up going into all of those routes. The only things that I teach are things that I know and things that I experienced. I started with developing high-level programs for my clients. Then I became an employer. Then I created an online course. So all of those things are things that I know very, very well. And I believe that everyone has a capacity for at least one of those things, depending on where they're at. So I am going to be teaching, if you are catching this episode when it gets published, then you are in a very lucky time, because this Saturday, August 9th, I'm going to be teaching the Sustainable Success Blueprint, which is my system, really, that anyone can draw upon to get that inspiration of where your next right step is. So I definitely invite anyone interested in this, even if you feel like you have a plan, or even if you feel like this isn't for you, that imposter syndrome is already starting to rear its ugly head, go ahead and join in and just see what might be possible for you, because there's a lot of opportunity out there and all we need is just a little spark.
I'm excited to see what comes out of that.
Me too.
Thank you so much for your combined heart presence and years of information put behind this. It's amazing to me how much is gleaned. As much as we talk about this, both on and off the mic, there's always something new, and it's incredible.
Yeah, thank you so much for facilitating this conversation, and thank you everyone for listening. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at my Instagram, and hopefully you'll get to make it to class. And if you happen to catch this episode late and don't get to make it to class, I still hope that you got incredible value from this conversation. We'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks for listening to The Sustainable Bodyworker. If something resonated for you today, grab your free breakthrough session, which includes a custom hypnotherapy track to help you unlock the next level. Grab it now with the link in the show notes. And to hear more, hit subscribe. We'll see you next time.